Free agency has officially started, but it's Monday, mock draft Monday. Baltimore Ravens 7-round mock draft. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing Ravens content every single day. In this video today, like I said before, if you're new to the channel, new to the series, mock draft Monday, every Monday of the NFL offseason, I'll be doing a 7-round mock, no trades, and I will have graphics up for every single pick, minus the last one. You'll see why. But the graphics will be scouting reports. They will have all of their info so you guys can follow along with me. As always, comment down below your mock drafts, your thoughts on my picks, and what you think you do differently. Also, let me know how you think free agency is going. The Ravens haven't signed anybody yet, but we have lost a couple people. So I might make a video on it tomorrow on the players that they've lost and potential players they could still sign. So stay tuned. But we're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. The goal is to hit it before next season starts. But let's jump right into this first pick. Round 1, pick 27. I went with Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. Now, you may be saying, McConnell, TTB, the Steelers just acquired DK Metcalf. How could you not go with cornerback? Well, the corners weren't available, unfortunately. We don't have to worry about drafting offensive line in the first round anymore. So really what I'm looking at is I'm looking corner, edge, wide receiver. And I just felt like the corners that were available did not meet the level of wide receiver that we had available in Luther Burden. And when I was looking at pass rushers, they also didn't meet. A pass rusher that was available was James Pierce Jr. If you guys know anything about me, I don't think he's a first-round player. I think he's a huge developmental piece, and I don't want that for the Baltimore Ravens right now. So I don't think he's worth it. I don't like Princely. I don't like Landon Jackson. So the edge rushers really weren't doing it for me. And I looked at the wide receivers and I was like, Luther Burden's on the board. I think I have to go with them. If you don't know much about Luther Burden was seen as a top 15 pick coming into last year. Star wide receiver at 1,000 yards at Missouri, big-time touchdown player. And then last year he played, and Missouri's offense kind of wasn't what people were expecting. And so he ended up falling. And then he ran in the combine and he ended up running 4.41, which people were disappointed in. I was disappointed in. I really wanted to see him run 4.3 because of the way that he plays in his style. But 4.41 is still good enough to where he has good NFL wide receiver speed. Now, his play style, very unique. Okay. He is somebody that Missouri used in jet passes, screens, mostly out of the slot, a lot of motion, but he's somebody that you get the ball in his hands and he turns into a running back. He's physical, right? He's a tackle breaker. He's extremely quick and shifty, but it's a different sort of yak than a guy like Zay Flowers has, right? Zay is like extreme quickness, avoid them at all costs. Luther Burden's more of kind of a little bit more of a tackle breaker, right? He uses his quickness to get the right angle to then, avoid a player, but still make a little bit of contact. But he falls forward. He's terrific in that game. But when I'm looking at the Ravens offense and what I think they want to do is they want to get all of their players in open space. Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews. Those are all basically the offense right now. They want to get him in space. And Luther Burden, out of all those players, would maybe be the most dangerous. Just depending on how his style fits in the NFL. We'll have to see. That's one of the concerns I have, right? Will his tackle breaking and yak ability translate to the NFL? Don't know. I think it should be good. The question is, will it be, fantastic? Will it be top 5 in the NFL? I don't know. That's the question. I think it will be elite, but I don't know how great it can be. But I look at him and I look at how much success a guy like A.J. Brown was able to have. And again, he's not A.J. Brown. That is not the style that he plays. But the way that A.J. Brown ran routes and how he was able to succeed there in Tennessee was crossing routes because of Derrick Henry hard play actions. And he was able to get the ball in open space, find a crease, and get those big-time plays. That's what I kind of see out of Luther Burden in this Ravens offense, taking over a little bit more of the screen game from Zay Flowers because Zay's, he's becoming kind of a route technician. Bates a route technician. Luther Burden, a little bit more of an underdeveloped route tree, but he has the athleticism to still, I think, have one. Just might take a little bit more time to develop. But now, all of a sudden, Zay Flowers can be running the downfield routes, the intermediate routes, the short routes. Luther Burden can be more the screen guy, jet pass guy, return specialist, and still make a ton of big plays for the Ravens. I think we'd have a fantastic 3 wide receiver trio if we got Luther Burden in the first round. That's why I went with them. Next up, round 2, pick 59. We lost Brandon Stevens, which is good, but we need a corner. I went with Benjamin Morrison, corner out of Notre Dame, and he could very well be a first-round player. I give him a first-round grade. I think he's that good of a player. He did have a hip injury. He did miss a lot of games last year. He only played in 6 for Notre Dame. So that's where the concerns are. That's why he's falling. Didn't end up running at the combine because I think of his injury. I think it was injury. I don't think it was personal choice. But he's supposed to be good to go. It's not supposed to be a hindrance towards his future playing career. But Benjamin Morrison is a prototypical outside number 1 corner. And when you look at what the Ravens have with Nate Wiggins, adding him with a Benjamin Morrison, with right now we have Marlon Humphrey in the slot, it would be fantastic. Morrison is a shutdown number 1 corner, outside corner. He can't play in the slot. He may not have the speed of a Nate Wiggins, but he has enough speed to play. He can run man. He can run zone. Great with the ball in the air. He turns. He gets picks. He gets swats. He gets PBUs. Difficult to run routes on him. He was the guy at Notre Dame that was locking up Marvin Harrison. He was the guy at Notre Dame that was going out and being that number 1 corner for one of the best teams in the country the last couple of seasons. And he was starting as a freshman as well. Ton of playing experience, really good football player. I think he's a first-round corner. I wouldn't mind if the Ravens took him in the first round because I think he'll be available around 27 or so. But I didn't take him because I thought Luther Burden might be a little bit better of a player for the Ravens, but he was available in round 2, and I was like, oh, we got to take him now. Next up, round 3, pick 91. I still wanted to go with offensive line because I don't love our right guard situation. I went with Tate Ratledge out of Georgia, a big offensive lineman, good pass blocker, but a physical, powerful downhill run blocker. Not necessarily a big-time athlete. I think he ran, though, like a 4.95, which at his size is much better than the athleticism we have right now with Daniel Faalele. And I think he'd be a better player than Faalele is just right now. And he could even, again, develop a little bit more. But I think this guy, he was a 3-year starter at Georgia, I believe. It was 3 or 4. I think it was 3 years at Georgia. And that's, he won a national championship with Todd Monken. That's somebody who did coach him. I think it'd be a really good fit in Baltimore. And again, Georgia, one of the best offensive lines, one of the best teams in college football the last few seasons. He's been a starter on each of those teams in the SEC against top-tier pass rushers and interior pressures. So he's done a really good job. I'd love to get him in Baltimore. And again, I don't love our right guard situation. I'm not a big Faalele guy. Next up, round 4, pick 128. I drafted him last time. I've drafted him before. Antoine Powell-Ryland out of Virginia Tech, ultra productive player these last couple of years. I think he had 16 sacks last year. I put up the scouting report. I feel like I talk about him so much. I don't want to spend too much time on him, but I think drafting edge rusher is a need, and I think he's one of the best day 3 edge rushers in this class. And I think I gave him a day 2 grade, like a round 3. I think is worthwhile on him. So I wouldn't mind if we take him even earlier. But I feel like his value is just versatility as a pass rusher. We need that. I think he'd be a really good pick. Next up, round 4, pick 136. I went with another offensive lineman because we don't know how much longer Ronnie Stanley is going to be able to play. Get a guy to put behind him, learn from him, get better. And I went with Chase Lunt out of UConn. Now, one of the concerns with Chase Lunt is he has a little bit shorter of arms, so there's potential for maybe he might have to slide inside to a guard. But this is he's a monster guy. Like he's like 6'7", 330 pounds. He's a huge tackle. Again, the arms are maybe a little bit shorter, but the Ravens tried to move Faalele inside. He's more athletic than Faalele was. He's more polished than Faalele was as well. I think he was a 4-year starter. He has like 2,000 pass block snaps in his career, or 2,000 snaps in his career. He's played a lot of football. He's been a really good football player for UConn. I think it'd be a really good pick for the Ravens just as a developmental player, just a guy to put behind our offensive lineman. And again, if needed, do the Mekhi Becton strategy, right, where you have just this monster offensive tackle, put him at guard, try him out. He's more athletic than a Faalele, so I think it would work a little bit better than what we saw out of Faalele at guard. But I think the potential is there. Next up, round 5, pick 176, our only 5th-round pick. I went with a running back. There's a lot of running backs in this class I like. I don't know how much I love this guy, but Ollie Gordon's a really interesting player, I think, to me, because he'd be a backup for Derrick Henry, right? I don't think we would use him outside of if Derrick Henry is injured or if Derrick Henry is tired. He's a 6'1", 220-pound running back that is just physical, power, not a home run hitter, but falls forward, breaks tackles, decent in space, like tough to bring down in space, not a big pass catcher. He doesn't have a lot of developmental traits to be a 3-down number one running back, but as a backup running back, a short yardage situation running back, he would not be a bad backup because Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Rasheen Ali, none of those guys are really guys you want to throw downhill, at the goal line, right? They're more pass catching. They're more, in space players. Ollie Gore would be the in between the tackles backup. Round 6, pick 184, the first of 4 sixth-round picks. I went with Jay Higgins. I think I've drafted Jay Higgins almost every time. You guys are probably getting very frustrated with Jay Higgins. So let me know in the comments. Are you done with the Jay Higgins draft? I might have to not draft him next time. But he's one of my favorite players in the class. He ran 4.8 in the 40-yard dash, but he did have pretty good quickness attributes. But when you watch him, he's just so fluid in coverage. He's a good tackler, physical, really good leader, kind of carried those Iowa teams who solely rely on their defense to win. And I think you'd be a perfect will linebacker in the NFL. Put him next to Roquan Smith, who does have a lot more speed than he does. But we have so much speed at corner. We have so much speed at safety. I feel like we don't necessarily need a guy that can fly playing will linebacker. If we have a guy that's just a smart, good tackler that can play the run, cover tight ends, I think it'd be pretty good for the Ravens. And that's why I went with Jay Higgins. Next up, round 6, 204. I went with RJ Mickens, drafted him plenty of times before. You guys see the scouting report. This guy's pretty smart. Pre-snap reads. He can diagnose when a run is coming. He can diagnose when a quick pass is coming. He can get down there. He can help out. He ended up surprising a lot of people with his 40-yard dash time. He doesn't play necessarily really fast. It feels like he could potentially get beat, deep downfield. But he did run 4.41. So that was pretty surprising, but hey, that does bring in a lot of versatility. I think he's probably going to be, close to the line of scrimmage. He can play over top a little bit. He's not going to play in the slot at all, but 3 safeties would give the Ravens a lot of versatility to put Darius in the slot, Kyle Hamilton in the box, Mickens in the box, or any of them over top. And I think they could play pretty well. And again, day 3 player that I think has a lot of potential. Next up, round 6, pick 210. I went with Cam Jackson out of Florida. This guy does one thing. He is a 0 tech or 1 tech, depending on which way you guys want to call it. Most people would call it a nose tackle. Just a massive. We think Michael Pierce is probably retiring, so we probably won't be bringing him back. We need a massive individual for QB sneak stopping, goal line defense, right? He has no pass rush game. He's not getting you sacks. He's not getting you push. But in the run game, he's so strong. He's so big. He is going to take up blockers and help Roquan Smith shoot gaps, help all these guys in the back end work on their run fits to be able to shoot gaps, hit the guys in the hole, and not let them get those short yardage situations. But he's a day 3 player. He doesn't have a lot of upside as a pass rusher. He doesn't really have any upside as a pass rusher. He does one thing, but he does it pretty well. And I think that's a role in the NFL, and I think he'd be a decent player to draft. Next up, round 6, pick 213. I went with Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. Productive offensive guard out of Sac State. And I took a lot of guards in this class because that's where we have question marks. And even if we have starters, right? Like we think we know who's going to start at left guard. We think it's going to be Voorhees after Patrick McCarry left. Faalele, we technically have under contract. I'm not a big fan, so I drafted, Tate Ratledge to take over that spot. But if injuries happen, contracts are going to be coming up, right? We only have 2 more years of Voorhees. We only have 1 more year left of Faalele. We don't know exactly what we're going to do. And I feel like the Ravens strategy the last few years has been putting not veterans, but players on rookie contracts that are on their 3rd or 4th year into those offensive starting guard spots where they want to develop them a little bit more rather than drafting them early. So I'm drafting these guys late because we like to get those guys in their last year to really see what they're all about, right? Think about Ben Powers did that. Bradley Bozeman is another guy where we draft them late and then we try and fit them in down the line. These guys aren't necessarily starting right away, but I think Jackson Slater in 3 years, if we don't have a left guard or right guard, could slide in and would be a competent backup for us as well. That's my strategy with drafting, a fair amount of guards. And then final pick, I said I won't have a draft profile for him because it's a kicker. And honestly, I honestly don't know what I would put on it. Like strengths, weaknesses, I don't know. Like he kicks whatever percentage for field goals. Like I honestly have nothing about scouting kickers. Like this is the best guy that was on the draft board, Ryan Fitzgerald out of Florida State. I feel like we're moving on from Justin Tucker based on how news is going and the no nonsense policy of the Baltimore Ravens and John Harbaugh. Ryan Fitzgerald has kicked multiple 50-yard field goals at Florida State. He has kicked game winners. You know, he was a good kicker in college. He got better with his percentage every year of his career. And I think it'd be I think we got to draft one. And if we don't draft one, we'll pick one up. But we drafted a punter. So if we draft a punter when we had a bunch of draft picks, I think we're going to draft a kicker when we have a bunch of draft picks as well. So Ryan Fitzgerald, welcome to the team. Sorry you didn't get a graphic. But everybody, thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for more. I'll run through the picks one more time. Luther Burden, Benjamin Morrison, Tate Ratledge, Antoine Powell-Ryland, Chase Lunt, Ollie Gordon, Jay Higgins, RJ Mickens, Cam Jackson, Jackson Slater, and Ryan Fitzgerald. I miss the years. It's good that the Ravens have a lot of picks, but it's difficult for me because it's a mouthful. It's a lot of talking for me to do all these draft picks, these mock draft monies, all the draft profiles. I love doing it though. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting. Subscribe for more, and I'll see all of you again the next time the Ravens make a free agency move. Maybe it'll happen tonight. Maybe it'll happen in 2 weeks. If it does happen in 2 weeks, don't worry. I'll have content out before then as well. Tomorrow video for sure. Thank you all so much. See you again then.